Women were not considered equal to men in the past, despite the fact that they were a significant part of our culture. They were not given the privileges and freedom that they deserved. They lived in their homes and kept their identities hidden behind masks. A woman would never be exposed or given the opportunity to demonstrate her independence at such a young age. They were not permitted to attend social, religious, or cultural events. With the passage of time, women's status deteriorated to the point where the birth of a girl child inside the family was viewed as a misfortune. They were ignored in a variety of ways and were not permitted to have a substantial role in social, cultural, or religious functions. Certainly, the struggle of women has decreased, but they continue to fight for their rights. They are still neither safe inside nor outside the womb, and they continue to fight for their education in various parts of the world. Mary Ward lived in an age of religious intolerance. Her parents were devout Catholics at a time when Catholics were being persecuted for their faith. Inspired by the deep faith of her family, Mary felt called to follow Christ in religious life. Mary wanted to follow Christ in a new way, free from religious enclosure and ready to step out to new possibilities. At first, Mary struggled to find the form of religious life which suited her dream, where the members would be free from enclosure and ready to undertake whatever was needed to support the faith and spread the gospel. She traveled extensively throughout Europe, mainly on foot, opening new houses and seeking support for her cause. She was imprisoned in Munich. Her institute was declared extinct, uprooted, and disbanded. Mary's life's work had been broken, and she was eventually released from prison. With a few faithful companions, Mary returned to her native Yorkshire and died there in 1645. Women in time to come will do much, said Mary Ward back in 17th century, and we are still striving to put those words into action.
Over the years, women have faced countless of struggles and yet to this day are still fighting for equality. So let us throw light on the topic of these struggles and make people aware of it. Women in the past and still to this day are facing discrimination thrown onto them by the society and sometimes even their own family. In the past, there was an ancient Hindu tradition called sati, where a widow would be forced to throw herself on her husband's pyre and burn to death. This act was initially voluntary and was considered courageous and heroic, but it grew more and more to become a forced practice. Although sati is now banned all over India, it has a dark history. Child marriage is an act where a child was required to marry an adult or another child. This was prevalent mostly among underage girls in the past. These underage girls were forced to live a life filled with pain and misery at a very young age, and it took their childhood away. The struggle of women has become lesser than what it was in the past, but it still hasn't ended. We would now like to present the struggles of women in the modern world. Women get assaulted in the workplace a countless of times and they aren't given high posts in many cases. They also aren't paid as much as the men on the same post status. Although there have been many struggles faced by women, it did not stop them from doing great things. The women of our country are doctors, engineers, fighters, and much more, and are trying to serve our nation in any way possible. All women want is respect and equality, and as our great Mother Mary Ward once said, women in time to come will do great things. Thank you.
Every girl, no matter where she lives, deserves the opportunity to develop promise inside of her.
Women have battled to prove themselves as self-reliant individuals. Repeatedly, these women warriors have manifested their prominence in various myths. Women have always been viewed as the incarnation of Shakti. Now, we are going to present some warrior women from the past era.
Women have battled to assert themselves as self-rated individuals and to vindicate their identities in patriarchal society. They have always been viewed as the incarnation of Shakti. Now, we are gonna present some warrior women from the past era.
I am Yagyaseni Draupadi, the Empress of Hastinapur. I was born by Arjuna and divided into 5. Lost by Yudhishthira in the gamble, I was humiliated by Duryodhana and Dushasana. I had cursed the Kuru clan. You have seen my compulsion. Now I'll see your destruction. And it happened.
I became a widow at only 29 years. After that, I declared myself as the Peshwa and did not commit sati. I also built several Hindu temples and dharamshalas like Kashi Vishwanath, the presiding city of Varanasi, and many more.
Women have been the one who are doing so much work behind the scenes and are never credited for it. The struggle women face right being a child is unimaginable. The struggle of getting education to fighting for her own rights. Some examples like J.K. Rowling, Emma Watson, Malala Yousafzai, and many more of them.
My name will be remembered by the people whom I don't know. My fight in Pakistan will surely flower and bloom. I am Malala, a Nobel Prize winner, a struggler for women's rights.
I'm Joanne Kathleen Rowling. At a time in my life, I was unemployed, a single mother, and in depression so severe that I tried to commit suicide. One day, while I was waiting for my train, the idea of Harry Potter struck my mind, and it was the best thought that ever came to my mind. After the first few years of publishing, I became one of the most renowned authors of all times.
At last, from the message conveyed by the various characters in the skit, I would like to conclude that be it the past or the present, the status of women still remains unequal in our society.
A reading from the Holy Bhagavad Gita. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience.
A reading from Holy Quran. And live with them in kindness. For if you dislike them, perhaps you dislike a thing, and Allah make them in much good.
verse from Guru Granth Sahib. From her kings are born, there is none without her. Reading from Holy Bible. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her.
महिमा तेरी गाए हम आज, धन्य हुए माँ मरिया वाड। महिमा तेरी गाए हम आज, धन्य हुए माँ मरिया वाड। सबसे महान तेरा नाम, सबसे महान तेरा नाम। धन्य हुए माँ मरिया वाड। महिमा तेरी गाए हम आज, धन्य हुए माँ मरिया वाड। महिमा तेरी गाए हम आज, धन्य हुए माँ मरिया वाड। सद्कर्म करना तूने सिखाया, करुणा दया का पाठ पढ़ाया। सद्कर्म करना तूने सिखाया, करुणा दया का पाठ पढ़ाया। शिक्षा का सब में जो जलाया, स्वर्गीय पिता का मान बढ़ाया। शिक्षा का सब में जो जलाया, स्वर्गीय पिता का मान बढ़ाया। करते हैं आपको दिल से प्रणाम, करते हैं आपको दिल से प्रणाम। धन्य हुए माँ मरिया वाड। महिमा तेरी गाए हम आज, धन्य हुए माँ मरिया वाड। जन जन ने सुन ली तेरी पुकार, जन जन ने सुन ली तेरी पुकार। करते हैं सब मिलके जय जयकार, करते हैं सब मिलके जय जयकार, करते हैं सब मिलके जय जयकार।
Now let's pray. Dear Lord, I lift up women all around the world who are struggling today, whether emotionally, mentally, physically, or spiritually. Let your spirit fall on us, remind us, and guide us of our purpose.
Today I'm going to recite a poem on Mother Mary Ward. Mother Mary Ward. She was a lady full of valor, ignorant about happenings of future. She had no fear of getting defeated. A mission for the dignity of woman she completed. Devoting herself to the service of mankind, love and speak the truth, she always would remind. Setting up girls' schools and institutions, her strive for equality was much a contribution. She believed these are the women of today who strive for excellence in every way. And for them she gave the initiative so that society could be a better place to live. She challenged to break the fetters of society, yet to be devoted in service of humanity. To face the world with our heads held high, and should always be true until we die.
कितनी लड़ी लड़ाई हमने, कितने संघर्षों को झेले। हम यूं ही नहीं यहाँ तक पहुँचे, अब हम नहीं रह गए अकेले। मंजिल छोड़ आगे बढ़ आए, पीछे रह गए सभी झमेले। धरती नापा चांद पर पहुँचे, अब अपने तो वहीं लगेंगे मेले। यूं तो हैं हम फूलों से भी कोमल, पर पड़े जरूरत तो बन जाते हैं दहकते शोले। दौड़ के पहुंचे हैं चोटी पर, गहरे सागर की लहरों से भी खेले। कितनी लड़ी लड़ाई हमने, कितने संघर्षों को झेले। कितनी लड़ी लड़ाई हमने, कितने संघर्षों को झेले। हम यूं ही नहीं यहाँ तक पहुंचे, अब हम नहीं रह गए अकेले।
छू ले हर ऊंचाई, तुझको किसने रोका है। बात कल कुछ और थी, आज फिर से मौका है। पर खोल के हो आजाद, डर मत इस आसमान से। कमर कस ले आज ही, तुझे लड़ना है इस जहां से। ये बंदिशां, ये बेड़ियां तुझे रोक न पाएंगी। तेरे इरादों से टकरा कर खुद ब खुद टूट जाएंगी। सर झुके थे सर झुकेंगे अब तेरे सामने। किसकी मझाल इतनी कि तुझे झुका दे अपनी शान में। तूने तो इतिहास रचा है अब तक अपने काम से। बनी है बनती रहेंगी गाथाएं तेरे नाम से। तू किसी से कम नहीं, ये बात आज तू जान ले। बहती धरा को मोड़ दे, अपने अंदर की ताकत को पहचान ले। सर उठा के देख जरा, वो वक्त फिर से आया है।
सही है कि नहीं मेरी ये डगर, लूं कि नहीं मैं अपना ये सफर। डर लगता है सपनों से कर देना ये तबाह। डर लगता है अपनों से दे देना ये डगा। मैं चांद हूँ या दाग हूँ, मैं राख हूँ या आग हूँ। मैं बूंद हूँ या हूँ लहर, मैं हूँ सुकून या हूँ कहर।
There have been huge changes for women in terms of employment in the past decades, with women moving into paid employment outside their home in ways that their grandmothers and even mothers could only dream of. Women are moving into jobs that used to be done by men. Even those women working in factories or shops have more choices and independence than if they remained at home.
Future of women is full of success in every field they pursue. They have numerous golden chances, starting from the school level to professional career. Today's women are getting boosted up to do better in their areas of interest by family members. Females have no foolish restraints to tie their feet and hinder their path to success. They are emerging as a much stronger physical, mental, emotional and economical personality day by day. The journey has just begun and it will continue in the future.
Although more women are working, they are often still worse paid than men. In many places, the increase in women working is simply driven by the necessity of having two wages to make ends meet. Thank you.
Hello everyone, honorable sisters, respected teachers and my dear friends. There are without a doubt innumerable challenges and issues that women face that concern physical and mental health. Problems like lack of education, improper health facilities, gender discrimination, dowry-related problems, domestic violence, etc.
Several women have served in various senior official positions in Indian government, including President, Prime Minister, Speaker of Lok Sabha, etc. However, many women in India continue to face significant difficulties which is a serious concern in India. Considering all these crimes, various safety laws have been introduced. Today, our class 8F have prepared an informative documentary on the topic women's struggle past and present.
A hierarchy. Hierarchies are systems in which the members of societies are ranked according to their relative statuses or authorities. All societies have always had hierarchies. It is in humans' very nature to rank and organize people into social scales and to aim to reach the very top. But these systems were not necessarily identical everywhere. For example, race is very important to modern Americans, but was relatively insignificant to the medieval Muslims. Caste was a life and death in India, whereas in modern Europe it's practically non-existent. However, one form of hierarchy has always been of supreme importance in all non-human societies, the hierarchy of gender. People around the world have always divided themselves into men and women, and almost everywhere men have gotten the better deal, at least since the agricultural revolution. In many societies, women were considered the property of their fathers and then their husbands. In many legal systems, the crime rate fell under the term property violation. In other words, the crime was not done against the women, but against the men who owned them. As mentioned earlier, at least since the agricultural revolution, most societies have been patriarchal. There are plenty of theories to explain the origin of this division, none of them convincing. The most popular theory points to the fact that men are stronger than women, and that their strength allows men to monopolize tasks that demand manual labor, such as plowing and harvesting, which gave them control of food production. There are 2 points that render this theory moot. The first being that it is true only in regards to certain types of strength. Women are generally more resistant to hunger and fatigue than men. The second point being, women have throughout history been excluded mainly from jobs that require less physical effort, such as priesthood, laws, and politics, whereas it was the norm for women from the lower class to toil in the fields every day. There are a number of other theories, we just cannot know for sure which one is right. What we do know is that during the last century, gender roles have undergone a huge change. More and more societies give people not only equal political and economic rights, but also are willing to completely rethink their most basic conceptions of gender and sexuality. These dramatic changes are precisely what made the history of gender so fascinating, yet bewildering. The last question is, if the patriarchal system is based completely on unfounded myths rather than biological evidence, then what accounts for its universal presence?
We all struggle with some things in our day-to-day lives, but imagine when half the population has struggled throughout human race just for being who they are. This was not a case for most male, yet many women have certainly experienced it. Women and girls are leaders, change makers, caretakers, and so much more. But while they have such an important part in our societies, women are forced to fight for their rights. We have made so much progress, but some things didn't change. In all stages of history, women have been struggling through a second-class life. It wasn't just that women didn't have equal pay or the rights to vote. Women's lives were controlled as if they were prisoners in the patriarchal society. So today, let's dive back into history and look at some of the most gruesome things a woman had to face. Women in the 16th, 17th and 18th century were challenged in expressing themselves in a patriarchal system that generally refused to grant merit to their ideas. Now, what is a patriarchal system, you might ask? Well, imagine you live in a house with 10 other people, but then one of you states that they are the leader and you have to follow them. You'd be angry, right? You'd even try to fight them for it, but you are silenced and no one hears you. How would you feel? The social structure of the 16th century Europe allowed women limited opportunities for involvement. Women were expected to focus on practical domestic pursuits. They were not allowed education. It was against the traditional female virtue, educating them with certain rules. It's a common myth that women were satisfied with the condition of their lives. Yet women were speaking out all the time, but they were not necessarily heard, and many of them were even hanged. In India, the early Vedics treated women fairly. They were given equal opportunities, the right to speak out in public, and much more. But it all changed when the later Vedics came. The patriarchy was in full control. Women were shut out, kept in their homes, and were expected to do the daily chores. Girls were told to stay at home while boys were sent out to study. Sati, which thankfully doesn't exist now, was a practice in which a widow sacrifices herself by sitting atop her deceased husband's funeral pyre. Now let's jump into the 90s, the era of new beginnings, a time when a woman can learn and sing. But at what cost? They still had a very stereotypical role in the society. If married, they stayed at home to look after their children while their husbands worked and brought in the weekly wage. The term spinster, though a term not of outright abuse, still had some stigma attached to it. Women of Afghanistan also struggled a lot under the Taliban in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Widows are to this date considered as an outcast in the Indian society. There are hundreds of widows' ashram in India where they live when abandoned by their own family. They are told to step aside in weddings, only allowed to wear white and not celebrate any festival. Women are considered as an outcast in this modern time. And why? Just because they outlived their spouse. Recently, on 11 December 2021, a very absurd passage came up in the exam held by the Central Board of Secondary Education. It contained a trashy statement such as, quote, "Women gaining independence is the main reason for a wide variety of social and family problems," unquote. Quote, "Wives stopped obeying their husbands and that is the main reason children and servants are indisciplined," unquote. That entire passage is filled with such sentences that preach misogyny. Even the questions that follow are equally ridiculous. It reflects extremely poor on the thinking of this generation. And this is just a little of what is happening and what has happened to us. Before history was recorded, the cruel treatment of women started at the dawn of this civilization. I am not an object, I have a voice, and today I have something to say.
Women are known to be the symbol of courage and strength. The role of women in today's society is changing significantly. Women are now successful in many fields like sports, politics, entertainment, education, etc. Women are now well educated and independent. The role of women in today's society is really important. Women are working at senior leadership levels in an excellent way. Women are equally important in the society. There have been a lot of changes for women in the recent times. The Supreme Court in September told the Union government that women aspiring to join the armed forces will be allowed to take the NDA entrance exam. Over 1.7 lakh women candidates applied for the exam. The education rate of women in the world has been increasing every day. In 2018, Saudi Arabia granted permission for women to drive. It was a historic move which cracked open a window to new freedoms for women. In Finland, the female Prime Minister's coalition government was formed with all 5 parties led by women. This shows that women can excel in all fields, including politics. The gender pay gap is the average difference between the remuneration between men and women who are working. Women are generally considered to be paid less than men. This situation is now changing. In July 2020, New Zealand passed an Equal Pay Amendment Bill, which shows that women who are working in female-dominated, historically underpaid jobs are to be paid equally as men. All these changes for women motivate them to work hard and achieve their goal.
Women's calm is taken away. They sowed this fear and cut her wings. But she was Icarus, chasing the divine sun. Fell into the exile of salted waves, the waves wept and held her up. She is women, she doesn't bend when the world daggers her. She is unbeatable, she fights till she dies. She is divine like the sun. For she is the sun goddess Ametris, and the one who harvests the food. She is the one who plants in her womb the seed, for she is also the goddess Persephone and Eve. She is war, both monster and maiden, curse and cure. She is all they fear, she is women.
If all of the kings had their queens on the throne, we will pop champagne and raise a toast to all of the queens who are fighting alone. Baby, you're not dancing on your own. Can't live without me, you wanna, but you can't, nah, nah, nah. Think it's funny, but honey, can't run the show on your own. I can feel my body shake, there's only so much I can take. I'll show you how a real queen behaves. No damsel in distress, don't need to save me. Once I stop breathing fire, you can't tame me. And you might think I'm weak without a sword, but if I had one, it'd be bigger than yours. If all of the kings had their queens on the throne, we will pop champagne and raise a toast to all of the queens who are fighting alone. Baby, you're not dancing on your own. In just a king can move one space at a time, but queens are free to go wherever they like. You get too close, you get a royal
to come will do great things. A short skit.
Congratulations, mashallah. She's so pretty. What have you named her? Her name is Sam. Hey, woman. I know how much you like children. Hey, bro. Well, where must be his proud father? He must be in another room. Congratulations, my friend. Please, leave me alone. What's the matter? Allah has been unjust with me. I prayed for a son, yet my wife bore me a daughter. Oh, behold, daughters are such a burden. All their life to take care of them, feed them, clothe them. Yet when they grow up, they will get married and go to their husband's house. So tell me, how will a daughter ever take care of her parents? Is that what you really think? Now just close your eyes and imagine a world without women. No mothers to love and nurture their families. No daughters to look after their fathers. No sisters to revere their brothers. And most importantly, no wives to take care of their husbands. So you said you have women, but the full chapter of the Holy Quran is dedicated to them. Furthermore, the 19th chapter is dedicated to the Holy Lady Mary, the mother of Prophet Jesus. Women are so important that without them, no one would exist. No prophets, no me, and no you. Now imagine what would you have done if you had a crazy son.
A woman, she shapes the destiny of civilization. She's the hand that rocks the cradle, the procreator, everybody's first teacher. Yet she is dying. The girl child is dying. Female feticide is ever rampant. The statistics tend one to disbelief. 10 million female infants and fetuses have been killed in India alone over the past 2 decades. Where did all these children go? Is anyone asking? The girl child is shrieking. Can we hear her? Are we listening?
Tragically, even if the girl child survives, her battle has just begun. Schooling and food, both of her fundamental rights as a human, are restricted. Her brothers are given preference for education and food at every step in her life. So not only do we have fewer mothers and sisters, we also choose for them to be feeble and uneducated.
Let each one of us find awareness in our hearts. Let us share it to those who are still in the dark. Let us make that extra effort and take that extra step forward from our busy lives and reach out to the yet unenlightened and uninformed members of our families, neighborhoods and cities, and make the change to truly put women and children, especially girl child, first. Remember, the tragedy is not the actions of the minority. The tragedy is the silence of the majority.
Mary Ward was an English Catholic nun born on 23rd January 1585 in Yorkshire, England. Her activities led to the founding of the Congregation of Jesus and the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which have both established schools that include women around the world, when at the time schooling for girls was practically unheard of. After her death in 1645, she was buried in the yard of St. Thomas's Church and was declared venerable by the Pope on 19 December 2009.
Sudha Murthy was born in 1950 in Shigaon in North Karnataka. She did her M.Tech in computer science and is now the chairperson of the Infosys Foundation. A prolific writer in English and Kannada, she has written 9 novels, 4 technical books, 3 travelogues, 1 collection of short stories, and 3 collection of non-fiction pieces, and 2 books for children. Her books have been translated into all the major Indian languages and have sold over 3 lakh copies around the country. She was the recipient of the R.K. Narayan's Award for Literature and the Padma Shri in 2006.
Malala Yousafzai was a bright girl born on 12th July 1997 in Swat Valley region in Pakistan. At the young age of 11, Malala began advocating for girls' education. She spoke out against Taliban, stating, "How dare the Taliban take away my right to education?" Her speech was covered by newspaper and TV channels. About this time, Malala's father was approached by the BBC. They wanted a female student to write about her life under Taliban rule. So Malala began writing a blog called Diary of a Pakistani Schoolgirl. In 2011, she was nominated for the International Children's Peace Prize. The entire world, including Pakistan, cried when a fatal attack was made on her on 9th October. Praises and bouquets for her attackers outpoured from all quarters. Malala gave speech to the United Nations on her 16th birthday. She spoke about wanting all girls to go to school and get education, stating, "Invest in books, not bullets." Malala's memoir, I Am Malala, the story of a girl who stood up for education and was shot by the Taliban, was published in October 2013. On 10th October 2014, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
Bajenti Pal is a lady of great courage and determination. She braved all adversities to become the first Indian woman to summit the world's highest peak, Mount Everest, in 1984. Pal was born in a modest family in Naguri village, Uttarakhand, on 24th May 1954. She climbed for the first time at the age of 12 during a school picnic. It was a 400-meter high peak. She became the first girl to graduate from a village. In 1984, she was elected to be a part of a group of 6 women and 11 men to climb Mount Everest. The team started its ascent in May 1984. Her team met with an avalanche accident in the night camp. Many members quit, and by May 22, Pal is the only woman left in the group. On the last day of their climb, cold winds were blowing at a speed of 100 km per hour and temperature dropped down to minus 20 to 40 degrees Celsius. On 23rd May, the team touched the summit at 1:07 p.m. and Pal became the first Indian woman to climb the Mount Everest. She has been awarded numerous awards, the Padma Shri in 1984 and the Padma Bhushan in 2019. But Bajenti Pal's tales inspire us to work hard and achieve our goal.
And Ruqayyah Sakhawat Hussain, who was born into a rich family, who owned a lot of land, though she knew how to read, write Urdu and was stopped from learning English and Bangla. In those days, English was seen as a language that would expose girls to new ideas, which people thought were not correct for them. Ruqayyah learned to read and write Bangla and English with the support of her elder brother and elder sister. She went on to become a writer. She wrote a remarkable story titled Sultana's Death in 1905 to practice her English skills. When she was merely 25 years old in 1910, she started a school for girls in Kolkata, and to this day the school is still functioning.
Engine drivers are men, but 27-year-old Lakshmi Rakhra from a poor tribal family in Jharkhand has begun to change things. She is the first women engine driver for Northern Railways. Lakshmi's parents are not literate, but they struggled and overcame many hardships to make sure that their children got a proper education. Lakshmi studied in a government school. Even in school, Lakshmi helped with household and did odd jobs. He studied hard and did well, and then went on to get a diploma in electronics. She then took the railway board exam and passed it on her first attempt.
Song dedicated to all the ladies out there.